Greetings, Avoider here reporting with the first retrospective game review on this channel. This title came up due to the release of its newest sequel, and I might get to that game someday, but I thought it'd be good if I first go back 14 years. Mafia: The City of Lost Heaven came out on August 28, 2002, developed by Illusion Softworks, now known as 2K Czech, and published by Gathering of Developers for the PC, Xbox, and PlayStation 2. It was more or less a GTA clone set in a fictional American city during the 1930s. Lost Heaven is a peculiar name for a city, with bits of San Francisco, Chicago, and New Jersey in it, but perhaps it's fitting for being set in the Prohibition era. It left a lasting impression on me when I first played it. I was already a fan of Max Payne, which was released a year prior, as well as Grand Theft Auto 3, so I was familiar with the gameplay, but it's the realism in the narrative that stuck with me. I've played plenty of games over the years, but I'll always remember this one. Also, reading more about it back in the day introduced me to something it was based on, a film called GoodFellas. The Godfather was alright, but GoodFellas is certainly one of the best movies ever made, and I learned of it through Mafia. Most of the realism in the game's narrative was inspired from both those movies, with game director Daniel Vavra creating a mix of drama, action, and a dash of humor, and he succeeded for the most part. GoodFellas being based on the real life of Henry Hill and his time as an associate of the Lucchese family certainly helps. Let's run through the characters. Don Salieri is Paul Cicero, Sam is kinda like Jimmy Conway, sort of, and Paulie is definitely Tommy DeVito. But the protagonist, Thomas Angelo, well, I can't say he's Henry Hill. More on that later in this review. Now, let's get to the story. It starts in medias res in 1938 at a diner, with Detective Norman here with the comically short tie, waiting for mobster Thomas Angelo, who seeks witness protection to testify against his now former boss, Don Salieri. Norman isn't exactly the understanding type. He's not one of those policemen. While he has his reservations, he agrees to listen to Tommy's story on how he became a gangster and his experiences in working for Salieri. Tommy started out as a taxi driver. One fateful night, two gangsters, Paulie and Sam, got into his taxi and told him to drive as fast as he can as they were being chased. Upon losing their interlopers, Tommy drives them back to Salieri's bar in Little Italy. He is then given cash by Salieri for repairs, and then some more. No matter what, whether it was fate or just a coincidence, Tommy was caught in a web at this point. The next day, he goes back to work, but then gets accosted during his break by thugs associated with the hostels from the night before, working for a man named Morello. Bolting to the streets and back alleys, he finds Salieri's bar and hides inside. His tormentors try to play it cool and go after him, only to check out dead. After that incident, Tommy considers switching to a new career. Don Salieri tests the new recruit with some hooliganism. He also gets introduced to the consigliere, Frank Coletti. He is then given a bat and some Molotov cocktails by the armor Vincenzo, and some wheels by the mechanic Ralphie. The basic flow here is drive to mission, do mission, then drive back to Salieri's bar. The driving makes for both immersion and busy work, the latter due to having to obey traffic laws and stay within the speed limit so you don't get hounded by the police. After wrecking those cars, he's now part of the club. He gets to do jobs like collecting protection money, lifeblood of the mob. This one goes smoothly at first, but a motel on the outskirts gets staked out. Sam is caught and beaten badly, so Tommy has to save him. The shooting mechanics here are janky, and this is the PC version. The best weapon here is the Colt 1911 with low recoil, good range and accuracy, and okay damage, but it only has 7 rounds per clip. Movement isn't that good, as well as the dodge roll. There's skeletal damage too. Headshots work, but you also die quick. Along with the stingy checkpoints and no manual saves, it can get really frustrating. Anyway, Tommy kills everyone, including this asshole, but another one skips out with the money. Tommy gives chase and somehow gets the bastard. Detective Norman questions Tommy's apparent comfort with killing. Tommy justifies it by explaining how the Mafia runs the whole city and does things the police can't, as well as how the government gets paid by them to turn a blind eye and even work for them. Basically, they like to say that they provide a service to the community as well. He then explains the difference between the two Dons, Salieri and Morello. Salieri endears himself to the community by being a reliable go-to guy. Morello, on the other hand...
Sure, no! Bastard gets in my way!
Yeah, that pretty much sums it up. Forward to 1932 with gambling, specifically sports betting. The Don bet on a racing driver with a pretty good car and the neighborhood followed suit. However, a European outfit joins in with their own monster car, which Tommy now has to take to a mechanic in the dead of night to sabotage. Speeding is kinda alright at night as there are less cops around. The time limit may force you to anyway. The mechanic, Lucas Bertoni, then gives the speed machine a tune-up, then Tommy brings it back. The next day, Tommy gets a call from Frank telling him that the racing driver got beat up the night before, so Tommy has to race. Well, going from being a taxi driver to a racing driver is quite a leap, or maybe not. The race is infamous for its difficulty. You have to win while contending with car damage and really slippery handling. Back in the day, I played it with a trainer, which is pretty much cheating. A later patch made things easier, but, well, it's still a drag. Somehow Tommy pulls it off, helping the Don save face, and it's implied that he became a made man as a result. However, the game doesn't show the initiation ritual with the whole "if you betray us, you will burn like this saint" sort of thing, which is a disappointment. It's a game about the Mafia after all. After most missions, Tommy can now visit Lucas Bertoni, who is grateful for having won money in the race. He leads Tommy to new cars in exchange for favors. Do an errand and learn where to lease a brand new car. Tommy has become a neighborhood hero at this point, and he gets to play hero some more by escorting Sarah, the barkeep Luigi's daughter, on her way home. She's been getting harassed lately, the usual "hey baby, wanna hang out with real men" type of thing. Tommy then plays knight in shining armor and beats him up. You know, typical West Side Story stuff. He ends up with some scuffs, so Sarah offers to bind his wounds at her place. One thing leads to another, and boom, a winner is Tommy. Good job. The next day, Tommy talks about what happened, and the Don is livid at having hoods causing trouble in his territory, so he tasks Tommy and Polly to beat him up. With help from a local stoolie, they find their hideout. Eventually, the hoods pull guns out. Also, apparently one of them is a kid named Billy, the son of a city official. They then try to get away, but at this point, Tommy is an ex-racing car driver, so he catches up to them. However, he's also a softie, so he hesitates in killing them. On the other hand, Paulie, having the spirit of Joe Pesci in him, kills them easily.
You can't feel sorry for these animals. He'd shoot you in the back the first opportunity he gets. You better get used to it.
I got used to it.
They did indeed kill the son of a city councilman, and he happens to be under Morello's thumb. That's one more enemy Salieri can ill afford. But meanwhile, Tommy has to whack someone. Frank gives him his assignment, a woman leaking information to Morello. He also has to kill the owner of the hotel/brothel she's staying in because, well, he's cutting in on Salieri's action. Then after killing them both, he has to blow up the hotel, which is indeed a tall order. So Tommy gets in there and liquidates the guy and his guards along the way. Tommy then finds the lady upstairs. She happens to be Michelle, Sarah's friend. She is seen congratulating Tommy after the race. She has kind of a sob story explaining why she did what she did, which unfortunately Tommy falls for, after which he lets her leave, warning her to never return to the city. He really is a softie, and that's gonna get him in trouble someday. He then gets to the office at the top floor and plants a bomb to blow the place up. After an action hero escaped through the rooftops with cops on his tail, he ends up in a church where Billy's funeral happens to be taking place. Of course, they recognize Tommy as the killer, so they try to take revenge. They fill the church full of holes. Tommy lives, and God is very displeased.
Look around you. Such a waste. We'll have to consecrate the church again.
At this point of the story, Tommy had been falling off the wagon for a while due to all the problems and the killings. He and Polly would get into some off-screen partying and carousing, his life seemingly falling apart and spiraling out of control. Frank pulled him aside one day and tried talking some sense to him, particularly,
You don't watch out, the next thing you know, your best friend kills you without blinking an eye.
It becomes very relevant later on. Despite all the troubles, Tommy seems to have a pretty good head on his shoulders, and somehow he pulls through. Off screen, of course. The year is now 1933. Time for some bootlegging, since it's still the Prohibition era. Tommy is presiding over a delivery of Canadian booze in a farm outside the city, because everything that happens outside the city tends to go so well. But of course, it's full of Morello men when they get there. Also, Sam gets hurt and kept hostage again. And again, fuck this recoil. The reinforcements just keep on coming, but somehow they make it, and they get Sam to the family doctor. The delivery was a disaster. They lost 8 men, and Sam's in bad shape. The Don's pissed enough, but then his consigliere and best friend then chooses to betray him by handing over all the family's account books to the city prosecutor. Enough evidence to put Salieri away for life. Tommy now has to get the account books back and rub Frank out, but they don't know where he is. After asking 3 different stoolies all over the city, with the last one needing some persuasion, he learns that Frank is flying to Europe on that day. He follows Frank and his police escort to the airport, where they were ready for him. He gets Frank after getting rid of maybe well over a dozen cops, and the situation is like Michelle all over again. Why would Frank do such a thing? Well, he fears for the coming war between Salieri and Morello, which is bound to be bloody. Also, the police are holding his family hostage to put Frank under their thumb. Being the softy, but having been here before, Tommy is sympathetic but also cautious. Frank, meanwhile, is ready to die as long as his family is safe, but after some deliberation, Tommy ends up not killing him too. He lets Frank fake his death and hide in Europe. With gratitude, Frank reveals the location of the account books. And with that parting gift, Frank Coletti is somehow laid to rest. Tommy got the account books back, but the prosecutor still has compiled evidence against Salieri. Now Tommy has to get that too, so it's time for a spot of burglary. Tagging along is Salvatore, the best safecracker in town. Upon entering the mansion grounds from the back, you may realize that this isn't exactly a stealth game. Oh well, just kill these guards by luring them in. They then reach the office on the 2nd floor, where Salvatore works as magic. After some time, the prosecutor arrives, at which time Tommy and Salvatore have to sneak back out. Once they do make it out, Tommy drives Salvatore back home, and that's it for the night. With that mess cleaned up, it's time to get back to making money. Polly came across a good source of prime Kentucky bourbon whiskey, courtesy of a man named Bill Gates. Wait, what? The deal goes down in the parking lot. But once they get there and proceed with the deal, here's Morello's army, again. It's hard enough staying alive, but Tommy has to keep the other 2 stooges alive as well. Especially Sam, who really seems to have no sense of self-preservation whatsoever. He's already been badly hurt twice, and he still hasn't had enough yet, apparently. Once the parking lot is cleared of Morello's scum and Tommy takes a truck with the whiskey out, here are even more Morello men. They're not easy to lose with this slow truck, but it's possible with perfect driving. Once the truck is in the warehouse and the coast is clear, that's it. And it turns out that Mr. Bill Gates here wasn't from Kentucky at all. He just stole the whiskey from Morello so he could sell it to Salieri for a quick buck. How fortuitous. 1933 was the year when Prohibition finally ended. The experiment had failed and the mob just lost its main income source. But it wasn't like they were starving for cash, since Salieri also has legitimate businesses to keep the money rolling in. Tommy also decided to settle down at this point, marrying Sarah and having a daughter. He also discusses how drugs are taboo. While it does entail big profits, it also attracts too much heat. Tommy seems to understand why he should stay away from them. This is completely opposite to Henry Hill in GoodFellas, who sold drugs behind his boss's back, even though Paul Cicero insisted that he not do so after he got out of jail.
Make a jerk out of me. Just don't do it. Just don't do it.
He then made even more dumb decisions by sampling the merchandise himself. This is why I say Tommy is nothing like Henry Hill. They walk opposite paths. Also, drugs were just starting to get clamped down hard in America during the 1930s, so they've only begun to become taboo at this point. The conversation then drifts to the nature of law and how the Mafia, a bunch of uneducated immigrants from Sicily, came to power in America. While Tommy puts forth how powerful they are, Detective Norman flips it and asks him why he's talking to him now, wanting to negotiate for protection in the first place. Ooh, burn. Fast forward to 1935, wherein things seem to be going Salieri's way for a while. One day, the Don wants to eat at a restaurant in New York, and Tommy has to drive him there since the Don's old bodyguard called in sick, which is an obvious red flag. They get to the restaurant, nice car by the way, wine and dine, and get a nasty surprise. Now, wooden tables aren't exactly bulletproof. Gotta say though, the Don can actually handle himself. I respect that. Tommy goes around the back and flanks him. It's then time to deal with Salieri's ex-bodyguard. They catch him escaping his apartment in his underpants, but Tommy guns him down, as well as his pals.
Don't waste your time with him. He's shit.
So, we're really at war?
We have been for a long time already. But now, more than ever before, take good care of yourself, brother.
Boss, it looks like he's had enough. What do you want us to do with him?
I don't know, finish him off and dump him in the ocean.
Tommy, that assassination attempt means that Morello has openly declared war on us. We have to deal with him.
Now it's time to go on the offensive by killing the councilman who had been giving Salieri so much trouble since his son got killed. He's giving a speech aboard an invitation-only luxury steamship on his birthday. How ostentatious. And Tommy has to somehow find a way in, unarmed since he'd be frisked. A revolver has been planted in one of the washrooms for the job. After dressing up as a sailor to get on board, some Benny Hill-esque finagling follows since the loo's locked.
Typical. This has to happen to me.
Once he gets the revolver, time for the man to show up. The revolver isn't as good as the 1911, but it's sufficient. With the councilor executed in public, all the other politicians in the city should be scared. Next on the list is Don Morello's brother, Sergio Morello Jr. He is the underboss of the Morello family, as well as the leader of the labor unions in the city. Without him, a significant part of Morello's income goes down the drain. Killing him would prove difficult though. Make him answer the phone to get a clear shot at his head? Fail. Put a bomb in his car? Kill this side chick instead? Fail. Just go up to him and blast him full of holes? Weapon jam. Fail. Fourth time around, professionals are hired, with Tommy as insurance policy. The pros sneer at him while going through the motions, setting up a trap at a railroad crossing. Plan is to push Sergio's car in just as the train comes for terrible damage. But hubris gets the best of them and Sergio still lives. Tommy gives chase.
Real damn professional.
He follows them to the harbor and has to fight his way to Sergio. This mission is perilous. There are riflemen up on the towers, and only the Thompson and the 1911 are viable weapons at long range. He finds Sergio's car near a building with its gates locked tight, but there are train carts on the other end to force a way in.
You won't get in here, you idiot! You're too small for me! Hey, you here?
The sand in Sergio's hourglass has run out. Tommy is a death machine, and he soon gets him too. Hardest mission in the game. Done.
You lucky bastard.
With the number 2 gone, there's only one left. Morello's empire is crumbling after gaining too many enemies due to his brutal ways, but he still has the gall to appear in public. He's watching Othello at the Opera House. Plan's simple, gun him down as soon as he comes out, like with Michael Corleone in Godfather III. But the play finishes early, so car chase. The Silver Fletcher here is the only truly bulletproof car in the game, so shooting at it won't do anything. Apparently there's a way to kill Morello on the road, but I couldn't manage it. They end up at the airport where their car suddenly breaks down for some reason. Morello is boarding a plane and Tom had a sawed-off shotgun. But somehow they got the car fixed and they chase the plane down with bullets. The plane goes down along with Morello. Finally.
Wow. Yes! Yes! How did you fix the car? Better ask Sam. Why ain't you a mechanic, Sam?
That works too dirty for me.
It is the end of an era and the beginning of a new one. With Morello gone, things look great, but Tommy then had an epiphany. While Morello was indeed powerful, a regular Joe like him was able to kill him. If he hadn't been so powerful, he'd still be alive. He then reflects on the nature of desire and how greed can snowball out of control. It's like he came upon the same realization that enlightened the Buddha, but he's a gangster in 1930s America. Not exactly the best time and place to be enlightened when he's trying to not get whacked, realizing too late that it was a toxic life. Salieri and Morello were once friends, working as capos under Don Pepone, who previously run the city in the 1920s. Fast forward a decade, and Salieri had a soldier kill his former friends while not having to look at them in the eye himself. Soon enough, it could be Tom killing or being killed by his own friend.
You don't watch out, the next thing you know, your best friend kills you without blinking an eye.
With Morello finally out of the picture, Salieri takes over the whole city. Fast forward to 1938. A politician named Mr. Sewer, what a name, has been parading as the city's new crime buster. Hidden agenda is he runs half the brothels in the city, so he's just trying to get rid of competition. Obviously, he needs to be taken out. Now this has to be done from a great distance, so Tom is given a Mosin-Nagant rifle with a telescopic sight, a sniper rifle. Optical sights had been around since the Crimean War in the 1850s, so this isn't inaccurate. Sniping is apt here as they don't want this killing to be public, unlike the previous ones. The best vantage point here is at an abandoned prison in Central Island. But it's not that abandoned, there are hoods and attack dogs inside. Upon reaching the top, Tom gets a clear shot. Once Mr. Sewer is given the grassy knoll treatment, time to split. Back outside, there's a witness giving details to a couple of investigators, and he squeals as soon as he sees Tom, which necessitates cleanup. Now all opposition is gone and Salieri is running the whole show. Of course, something is bound to not look right. Being comfortable on top can be an Achilles heel. This job is quite odd since they're carting a bunch of cigars. Cigars! That seems small time for high-ranking soldiers like Tommy, Polly, and Sam here. But oh well, a job is a job. Along the way, Polly proposes a side venture to his two best buddies. Sam asks if Salieri knows, and Polly says he doesn't need to know. That's a red flag right there. This is similar to Henry Hill's side venture in GoodFellas, also done behind his boss's back. Anyway, Polly wants to rob a bank. Suffice to say, the idea isn't well received. Anyway, turns out the job is far from relaxing, at least for Tom. It's not a delivery, it's more like a smuggling job. All this trouble for some cigars, but it turns out that they're not actually cigars. They're diamonds. Both Tommy and Polly weren't notified beforehand, which then yields feelings of envy and betrayal, which can only beget more betrayal. Polly wants to sneak out a box or two, but Tommy has none of it. Salieri arrives and plays dumb, confirming suspicion that they are being used. Tommy's gears start turning and he tells Polly that he'll be paying him a visit. Upon getting to Polly's place, they discuss what's going on. Sam wants none of it, so it's just the two of them. Tommy is still on the fence. He wants to see the bank first, so they take the light railway. Yes, the game actually has public transportation like taxis, trolleys, and the train. They're mostly for flavor. It's still easier to steal a car. They soon scout the location. The gist is the bank is small and not well guarded, so Polly thought that they could rob it and get away without too much trouble. Somehow, Tommy agrees to go along with it. Polly tells him to go to his gun dealer, Yellow Pete. Why that's his name? Well, just use your imagination. After acquiring the weapons and a getaway car, Tommy picks Polly up from his place, and the heist is on like it's payday 2. They kill the guards, Tommy gets the keys to the safe, and takes a big bag of money. They then get away and hide at some abandoned building for like 3 minutes or something until the heat's gone. Polly takes the money for safekeeping and arranges a meeting at his place the next day to split it up and talk about business. Of course, that sounds like a good idea. Not. Tommy comes by the next day and boom, Polly's dead. Now, you see how Polly's body is positioned here on the rug? It's the same position Tommy DeVito's body ends up in when he gets whacked in GoodFellas. I can see how this happened. There must have been a knock on the door. Polly answered, and it's Sam. Polly goes, "Hey Sam, what's up? Come on in." He opens the door, turns around, and wham! Sam shoots him in the back of his head. It's safe to assume that Polly was already a made man and he got whacked for that robbery because it was without Salieri's permission. And of course the dough is gone. Then the phone rings. It's Sam, and he tells Tommy he wants to warn Polly. Right. Even when I first played this when I was 16, I knew Sam was lying. It's too obvious, and the art gallery is a rather odd place to meet up. Surely anyone with a functioning brain can figure out that it's a trap. Near the end of GoodFellas, Jimmy Conway planned to kill Henry Hill since he had become a liability. It seems like Sam being the one tasked to whack Tommy was apt. But Jimmy wanted to do it on his own, while Sam acts on Salieri's orders. After getting weapons from Yellow Pete, Tommy arrives at the museum and gets rained upon. Of course, Sam killed Polly. Even after all those times they bled together, all those close calls and being brothers, it had always been Tommy and Polly, and then Sam. He plays quite the villain in this cutscene, hamming it up.
Maybe I feel some pity. That's out of place in business.
I didn't notice that I was the cause of the family's problems.
Really? You did what you wanted, Tom. You didn't kill Frank. You let that whore get away and then the bank? You can't do what you know is right because you don't know nothing. You don't grasp the effects of your actions. The Don is the thinker.
You were never a great thinker, so you probably need him. That's not how I feel. I can think for myself.
The opinion of Don Salieri is that he won't go and sit in jail just because of your feelings. And I agree with his opinion completely. Don Salieri really liked you, Tom. And I did too. We'll cry together at the funeral.
You poor bastard, Sam. I feel sorry for you.
But I'm alive. It's a pity you can't use that money. Oh, but don't worry. We'll give Sarah a little something. You know, single mothers don't have it easy these days. The Don will take care of her. He isn't as much of a monster as you think. Goodbye, Tom. It was nice knowing you. Take good care of him, boys. And please, don't make him suffer. He's my buddy.
But he does have a point. Tommy betrayed Salieri 3 times. He didn't kill Michelle, he didn't kill Frank, and he went with Polly on that bank caper. That's 3 strikes, and Tommy's out. But after all those scrapes, Sam should have known that it wouldn't be easy to kill Tommy. Salieri did indeed like Tom because he proved time and time again to be his best soldier, while Sam kept getting hurt. Even with a couple of dozen men between them, Tommy would get to Sam. As much as you can respect Sam for his loyalty to Salieri, he also has hubris apparently. This is quite the final mission in this beautiful art museum. It's a nice place to die in. There is also a lot of space for enemies to hide. In the final confrontation, everything is explained. Sam knew about the diamonds, and Salieri didn't tell anyone else to keep word from spreading. They had also learned about Frank being alive because Michelle apparently returned to the city and was seen by accident. They then made her spill the beans before killing her. Sam's right. Tommy's too human for this business. Perhaps it really was bound to end this way, just like how fate drove Tom to become a gangster. Sam knows how to exploit Tommy's weakness, but his propensity for being a bleeder finally gets the best of him. He then tells Tom that they did find Frank in Europe and killed him. Even if he was Salieri's only real friend, the Don would still kill him for betraying the Omerta. Friendship means nothing in this business. In the end, your best friend kills you. Frank's words still ring true, even after his death, and the death of many others. With him and his family in danger, Tommy has no other choice but to rat. He figured that he could become state witness, put away Salieri and his boys, and have him and his family given new identities to start a new life somewhere remote. It's a lot like how Henry Hill ratted on Paul Cicero and Jimmy Conway at the end of GoodFellas. Tommy was jailed for 8 years in a secret location for his crimes, where he wasn't allowed visitors, not even his family. After his release, he and his family went on to have a new life together. He sells in a nice neighborhood, gets a job as a driver for a respectable company, and lives well into 1951, when this happens.
Mr. Angelo?
Yes?
Mr. Salieri sends his regards.
Well, he got away longer than Frank, 13 years as opposed to just 5. As he laid there with his life draining away, he reflects on these revelations.
It depends on each individual how his world will be, how he makes it. And you also need a whole lot of luck, so that somebody else doesn't make your life hell. And it ain't as simple as they tell you in grade school. But it is good to have strong values and to maintain them, in marriage, in crime, in war. Always and everywhere. I messed up. So did Paulie and Sam. We wanted a better life, but in the end, we were a lot worse off than most other people. You know, I think it's important to keep a balance in things. Yeah, balance, that's the right word. Because the guy who wants too much risks losing absolutely everything. Of course, the guy who wants too little from life might not get anything at all.
A modern Buddha indeed. This is where the starkest contrast between the game and GoodFellas lies in terms of their protagonists.
In the end, when Henry Hill is fucking crying like a fucking bitch in the end, by the end of the movie, I hate the character because he went out and did exactly what fucking Paulie told him not to do, and then he gets caught and he fucking rats everybody else, and he's fucking get egg noodles and ketchup. Hey, dude, you should be in fucking jail. You cunt.
Meanwhile, Tommy got in trouble because he had a heart. Deep inside, he was too compassionate and maybe a bit too stupid for the business. That Michelle was a spying whore, and she returned to the city when she was told not to. She should have been dead much earlier, and her mouth also got Frank killed in the end. So Tommy's mercy was ultimately futile. Then again, Tommy wasn't supposed to be there. He never aspired to become a gangster. Despite being remorseless at first, the deaths did haunt him later. Also, once he got back to a normal life, he took to honest work like duck to water. Meanwhile, Henry Hill disliked becoming an ordinary citizen.
I have to wait around like everyone else. I'm an average nobody. Get to live the rest of my life like a schnook.
Reflecting on the difference between these two helped me a lot in learning about storytelling and the human condition in my formative years. Mafia is no longer being distributed for some reason, perhaps a copyright issue since it has old original music by the likes of Django Reinhardt and such. I think that's sad because this game could definitely use a remaster, maybe replace the music, improve its controls and overall gameplay, and update the graphics to make it playable in current hardware. This game's influence on me was fairly substantial. It sent me on a gangster movie binge. Godfather, GoodFellas, of course, Scarface, Casino, Carlito's Way, Donnie Brasco, and so on. I also watched The Sopranos. I even watched the Yakuza movies like Battles Without Honor and Humanity and all its sequels. Stories about people on the other side of the fence told through film may have embellishments, exaggerations, and cliches, but they all have similar themes of honor, loyalty, respect, and how all those three things can be shit on so easily. That life is harsh on those virtues, and that's why it's said that there's no honor among thieves. The sequel, Mafia 2, was alright. It told a fairly good story, improved on the gameplay, and retained a good bit of that Mafia vibe. However, I thought it wasn't as grand of a story as Tommy Angelo's tale. Then again, it more closely resembles Henry Hill's actually. Maybe if I have enough time, I'll review that game as well. Mafia 3 should be out by the time you're watching this. It's no longer directed by Daniel Vavra since he left 2K Czech in 2009, and it doesn't look to be shaping up as a traditional gangster tale. I'll be playing it sometime, maybe I'll review it as well. And that's all for Mafia. Until next time, stay Tor. Avoider out.